You can't buy happiness. Or can you? Hi, my name's Evalyna Littleyoungman, and my presentation today will be about household income versus mental disorders. I chose this topic of the relationship between household income and mental disorders because of the current crisis our world is going through, for example, the pandemic. It bears its own weight on mental health issues, with a distressing influence on employment. I hope to learn the depth of the situation and if it is significant enough to call for additional examination. My research question asked how income affects mental health. My broad hypothesis is households with low-level incomes have a higher potential of incident mental disorders. In the survey studied that included 1,441 respondents during the COVID-19 pandemic and 5,065 respondents from before the pandemic, depression symptoms prevalence was more than threefold higher during the COVID-19 pandemic than before. Lower incomes, having less than 5,000 in savings, and having exposure to more stressors were associated with greater risks of depression symptoms during COVID. Here are my variables. The GSS datasets that I used were year, ID, mental illness, as in how likely is X experiencing mental illness, wealth, the total wealth of the respondent, and the ballot that was used for the interview purposes. How likely is X experiencing mental health? I chose mental illness, which is my independent variable, and it's measured ordinal, so that I could obtain a measurement of the individuals that are being interviewed and how often they have encountered a need to address their mental health. The questions associated with this variable, in your opinion, how likely is it that name is experiencing very likely, somewhat likely, not very likely, or not at all likely? Okay. Wealth is my dependent variable, measured nominal. The question asked for the respondents verbatim was, please estimate your total wealth. Okay. My statistics frequency table shows me that some of the population that was surveyed has at one point in their lives sought mental health or will. My somewhat likely percentage, 17.6%, is higher than my very likely, 11.8%, which I interpret as the thought of seeking help has or is on their minds. Unfortunately, my not very likely population, which is 12.3%, is higher than my very likely population. This frequency chart also tells me the majority of the population does not choose to answer the questions, which was 1,175 respondents. My speculation is that if the missing data is higher than those that did respond, there is a high chance that they have contemplated seeking help at one point in their lives, but felt they did not want to share at the time of the survey. My total wealth of respondents is evenly distributed. Those over the 2 million category had a very small percentage of responses. This represents 1,038 of the population. This is the breakdown of wealth per correspondent. Low socioeconomic status increases risk for multiple health problems. That, in turn, increases risk of premature morbidity and mortality. Several mechanisms have been proposed to explain how SES gets under the skin, including downward social drift, increased allostatic load, and poor health behaviors. Of these health compromising behaviors, such as poor dietary habits, lower levels of physical activity, and higher rates of smoking explain approximately half of the SES differences in mortality. My speculation is that if the missing data is higher than those that did respond, they probably contemplated seeking help at one point, but did not want to share at the time of the survey, as I mentioned earlier. Each variable shows the population will respond to the survey about their wealth, 1,300 of them, but only 1,100 of them are willing to respond on experiencing mental health issues. As you can see, my research hypothesis is H1 equal having wealth is good for a person's mental health state. My H0 is wealth does not affect a person's mental health state. The alpha is 0.01 at the level of significance. In my comparison, P was greater than alpha, so 0.01, is less than 0.023, equal variance assumed. The null is rejected. My conclusion is those in the lower bracket of wealth have been treated for mental health issues more than those that are above the 2 million status. The median seems to have handled their wealth with a different mindset. My speculation is that those at the bottom of the wealth chart seem to have more mental health issues, which could be because of where they are in life versus those that are comfortable above the lower range. I've learned that money really can buy happiness at the reduction of everyday life stressors. I feel this topic needs to be researched further. Studies such as this would be a positive factor in the conditions of an economic status. Acknowledging the mass difference would help alleviate the cost of government health care, or at least lower it to a reachable standard. It seems healthcare providers are dealing with more social welfare cases than they should. If a person lives in a negative environment, it will affect their health, and that is what providers are facing today. On a broadcast that I occasionally hear, 85% of doctors surveyed agree that patients' social needs are overwhelming their medical needs. This survey requires further investigation. Thank you.